Hey, this is Kareem. We're getting ready to go with United Shades of Gray, a new edition. Today, we're going to be really just kind of assessing, how far have we come? What strides have we made as a nation when it comes to the whole push for diversity, equity, and inclusion? We'll talk about that a little bit and just kind of see where we have come. We know that in 2020, so much has happened, but we're going to see if we've really been able to make any strides. We'll talk about that. Hopefully, you'll get involved in the conversation. So stick and stay. We'll be right back. Let's get started.
Welcome to United Shades of Gray, Conversations of Race in America on 100.5 and 790 News Radio WSGW and online at WSGW.com. Here is your host, Kareem Bowen.
Good evening or good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of United Shades of Gray. When you hear this, it will be evening. We're recording this live, actually, at a new time. We're just trying out something new. So if you don't like it, blame the producer, John B. We are absent one man on this three-man ship. Mark Bassett is, as he said, on the road again. And he will not be with us on today, but I got the producer in the house, John B, in the place to be. John, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
Look at that. He had the camera ready. He's ready. He's on cue and everything. We want you guys to like, tag, and share this conversation with those that are around you. And if you are like me, I love the heat, and I'm going to make an admission on today because my mom never, like my family, they don't ask me if it's hot outside because 95 degrees should be where we are at all times. Like 90 to 95 is where my sweet spot resides. But on yesterday, it was hotter than all get up. Oh my gosh. 108-degree heat index. That is, I don't know if that was a record or not for this time of year.
I know we tied in actual temperature.
Yes.
At 95. We tied the 1988 record.
Wow. Yeah. It was hot. So my mom, she always said, I'm not going to ask you if it's hot. I'm not going to ask you if it's hot. But yesterday I was good pretty much all day till about 5 o'clock when that heat index hit 108. I was like, this is something serious. But today it is a much more lovely day, and we've got hot days ahead. It's going to be a hot, steamy summer, I believe. We're kicking out old man winter, and summer has finally come along. Of course, here in Michigan, they say we used to have 4 seasons, but I only see 3 these days. I never see a spring. What's a spring?
We just kind of skip right to summer, don't we?
Yes, we certainly do. So I want to thank you all that are in this conversation. Let's get this conversation going. Those of you who are in social media land, I want you to like, tag, and share. That's the key. Like, tag, and share. Then you can also go to our pages, like our pages. You can check us out on YouTube. Subscribe to what we're doing on YouTube as we just build out these great opportunities for us to think about the things that are very important in life. All right, we're going to get to what is hot off the press. Now, I didn't do this on last week. But there is so much stuff that is going on around us that I think that some of these things we're going to pull. There's an earthquake that took place in Afghanistan, and our hearts and prayers are always with families and children and during these types of situations. I haven't heard much more about that. I just knew that there was an earthquake. I saw the initial stuff. What do you have? Do you have any?
I know rescue efforts are underway. They're trying to get together international groups of people, emergency responders, but that's about all I have heard.
And now, as we continue with the global drama, we see that Mr. Putin. Well, this is the thing. Remember, I told you when we were talking about the war in Ukraine, and I said I believe that we have Americans that are secretly fighting. I honestly believe that Americans are fighting this war. I believe that much of the military craft is say, "Hey, we shot a helicopter out the sky." They didn't have these capabilities. Now all of a sudden we send weapons and they become aficionados at using this stuff. Come on, I'm kind of skeptical.
I know that they're probably being trained by Americans, and I know that at least part of Ukrainians' Foreign Legion is made up of Americans. But I have a hard time believing that. I think that we're looking for an excuse I think that some people, I won't say all of us, I think that some people are looking for an excuse to get NATO, which means
Involved.
Americans
Yeah.
involved.
Well, I'm not. I don't think that we have time. We got a lot in our own hands
Oh,
to
yeah.
handle. But I saw, there's other places in the region that are now under threat of Putin, invading or just kind of cutting off and doing these. This is the craziest thing that I have seen in some time. But I am praying that there is some type of resolve. That saw that we now are up to 2 Americans that have been killed in the Ukraine war. So our hearts and prayers go out to them. But coming on home stateside, we now have what it appears to be the Senate going to put together our first gun legislation in how many years? Decades.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Senate has released a framework for the new legislation that they're talking about on gun control. Now, this is really historic because before it was just like, we're not doing anything. So I guess 21 people, 19, elementary kids would have to die before something would happen. So I'm just I'm thankful that something is taking place. It's not, the overhaul that I think many people were hoping. I don't think most people want an overhaul. I think that most people want sensibility in this legislative process. I think that most people want to see that our kids are safe, that people who should not have weapons shouldn't have weapons. And honestly, I would like to see a reduction in weaponry that is on the streets and in our communities as a whole. That's just my personal thought. And I think that I would like to see an assault rifle weapons ban. I've said that a million times. And I know that's not a popular thing. I just don't understand what non-military personnel has to have a military type weapon for. So I know I'm on an island for myself when it comes to those who are far to my right, and some of those probably in the middle as well. I think that certain things just should not be to the common man. If you want to shoot those things, join the military. We're looking for a few good men all the time. What are you going to say, John?
Okay, I think we need to enforce the gun laws we have. I think that's the biggest thing right now, and that's the biggest thing that a lot of people are.
And which of those laws are you talking about?
Well, quite a few. If our current enforcement worked, we wouldn't have quite so many illegal weapons out there. And like you hear about shootings in Saginaw, even with illegal firearms. They
Absolutely
acquired them illegally.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's just like drugs. I tell people this all the time. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you finish.
No, it's fine. The other thing with the assault weapons ban, I think that a lot of times the AR-15 is sent out as a boogeyman. It has never been used in any armed conflicts that the U.S. has been involved in. It certainly appears like the weapons that are used by the military, but it is not the same mechanism. It is not fully automatic. It is semi-automatic, as are most handguns, including, if you talk pragmatically, including revolvers. The difference is a rifle is much easier to use, much simpler in terms of, I won't say accessibility, but in terms of someone can pick up and use a rifle and they will be more effective than they will be picking up and handling a handgun.
And that's why I'm not against having rifles, because I do understand rifles play a key part in how much of our country lives and the things that they consider what were the leisurely activities and hunting and just the pastime of doing. I don't understand, and I understand what you're saying about the AR-15. I don't understand, what do we use that for then? And what is the purpose for those being in rotation? I'm not saying go take them from people who already, if you have them, you have them. But I think that there needs to be a real ban on military style weaponry going into civilian hands, because this is my thing. And I'll be very clear about this. I have my personal reasons and my personal beliefs as to why a certain population of our nation likes those types of weapons, because I believe that there is a very vast, and people can disagree, but we see it happening every single time there is a national tragedy here in the United States where the government has to be has to take a strong stance in terms of what takes place. I saw this take place in March of 2020. There was a run on stores for all of the weaponry, for ammunition, because there's a very large, and I think it's bigger than what we would give way to, a portion of our population that is waiting for martial law. They're waiting to take the government in their own hands. They're waiting to put certain people in our nation in their own place. And it's a frightening thing for me as an African American man, understanding the role that guns have played in the building of what we consider America. How our people, my people, when I say our people, I'm talking about my people. It was the weapon that assisted in the removal of us from our natural habitat and our natural land to come to this nation. And so I cannot see in the formidable future any reason why these types of weapons would not be used for anything other than more malice intent, as they have been in the past. And I know that as we look at this, we often want to look at, what's happening in these mass shootings around the world. But I think that there is another narrative that does not get discussed, that there is a large swath of Americans. We got 50% of Americans split down the road. There's a large portion that is to our right of center, that has a very different mentality on what the United States and what democracy means, and if we even really believe in democracy again. So that's where I come from with my statement.
Yep. I think that I think you're right in that people have different. I appreciate your view of what the gun as a symbol means when it comes to the founding of the United States of America.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's probably a lot of indigenous folks here that probably would feel the same way.
For sure. Yeah. I think that it means a different thing to people who, I won't say distrust,
who are used to using them.
Well, yeah, who are used to using people who see authority as a problem, which is, America was founded by people who saw authority as a problem. If you look at the federal government, I think I'm going to short soapbox.
I didn't even think we were going to go this direction, but I'm fascinated by this conversation.
If you look at the federal government, it was almost designed to be totally ineffectual. You have the two houses of Congress set in opposition to each other. You have the three branches of the federal government set in opposition to each other. They're supposed to be constantly beating each other down, restricting each other, so that they cannot usurp the power of the states and, by extension, the power of the people.
I think that your view of that is very interesting. And I think it's interesting, but I think that when we see what is in operation, you're responding to what you see. Yeah. And my question would be, do you think that was ideally what the framers of this system of government were really looking for? And I like to look at it more as checks and balance.
Yeah.
In terms of how we should be operating instead of opposition to. I think that we have come to a place that we see it as being in opposition to. And that's one of the reasons why nothing gets done for the people. This is a government that was made for we the people, that was orchestrated by we the people, but no longer works for we the people. And I think it's because we've taken on that framework and that understanding that it is supposed to be opposition. We are enemies of one another. And I think that is the thing that stops us from being able to do anything. And I think even this, the changes that they're making, I'm not going to say I'm thankful for the things that are making with these gun laws, but even still, I think that this came out of a place of opposition. We're not going to give this. We're not going to give this. And instead of saying what is best for the American public, what is best for what do the American people want? How about we go there?
Yeah.
And when you look at this, overwhelmingly more than half of the American people want to make sure that they're not saying take away the guns. And I keep saying this, and I got to make sure that I do this. This conversation that the Second Amendment allows us to have whatever we want in terms of weaponry, that's a fallacy. That's not what the Second Amendment really is about. We'll have that conversation as I bring in my proof, and we'll have that discussion, because even the Supreme Court said the same thing when we were looking at a revolt that took place, a number of years ago. But I think that America wants a safe America. I think America wants to be able to have recreational opportunities. But I think that we are allowing ourselves, instead of working in collaboration, we're seeing each other as enemies, and that's why nothing gets done.
I think you latched on to one word of my point, and
Okay.
I'm gonna step down after this.
Absolutely.
The American people are not in opposition to it. We're not meant to be in opposition. The government was the different parts of the government.
We have become Democrats and Republicans.
And if you look at Democrats, how many people who are Democrats don't agree with everything the Democratic Party is doing, but latch onto it because that's the party bus. And same with the Republicans. That wasn't meant to be the system. It was supposed to be free of parties initially, and the opposition was supposed to be between the different branches of government. They were supposed to be trying to keep each other in check, and the people were supposed to maintain power through all of that. And I think that that's kind of been gradually given up.
Well, we sold power to the big corporations.
Absolutely.
That doesn't work anymore. But I love the conversation. I think that it's very interesting. What I do want to say is that I want to applaud those lawmakers who really fought against really what a lot of party lines were saying to make this happen, both on both sides. I say that because there were a number of Republicans that wanted no changes, and there were some Republicans that, hey, we got to do something. It's someone else's grandkids this time, or someone's kids this time. Next time it may be ours, or grandparents, because we've seen the whole spectrum play out across the country. So then there's those Democrats who are out there, and I'm sure their constituents are saying you caved in and you didn't do enough. So I want to thank you, those who are out there. I want to celebrate you actually for being able to get something done. This administration has been in gridlock because America has been in opposition to each other. And so I like a government that works for its people, since we, the people, are supposed to be the ones in power. So I just want to give you really some quick overviews in terms of what they're saying. This is part of this is going to be enhanced background checks for buyers that are under the age of 21. I think that certain things should just say, if you can't drink until you're 21, there's a lot of other things I think that should be equal to that as well. Yeah.
When I think that it just needs to be, I think we need one age. When are you an adult? Is it 18 or is it 21?
What privileges do we give 18-year-olds when they become 18?
Well, 18-year-olds can buy rifles. They can enlist in the military and be drafted into the military. There's a lot of financial stipulations in terms that go along with 18.
In terms of contracts, you really, unless you're LD8, it's an invalid contract.
I think it should just be choose one, 18 or 21.
I'm going to tell you right now, I think 18 is too young. I think 21 is too young, but 18 is really kind of fickle. And I say that across the board. Of course, you're going to have some 18-year-olds who were raised and they were trained and they were taught how to do things and how to handle themselves. I think, you have those individuals out there now. We're lacking those types of things in our systems before 18. And I think that in the past, I think we're fathers and mentors and men and who were handling guns, weapons, even moms for that matter. They were very concerned and on point about making sure that we understood how to handle those things. I mean, when I grew up as a young kid, we were taught how to handle them, how to store them, how to clean them, all of those things.
Yep.
And those are things that took place. They were intentionally taught. We're not doing that anymore.
And not just guns, finances and
everything across the board.
Yeah.
So I think that it's important. But let me get back to what we were.
Yeah,
so just so these people understand what's happening in the nation as it relates to gun. So we said the enhanced background checks for buyers that are under the age of 21, provide some $15 billion in new federal funding for mental health programs and school security upgrades. I really don't want to see all of our schools with armed security guards. To me, that doesn't say we're safe. It says that it's spooky to me. But it's one of the things that they're thinking is going to make the difference. Let's put some snipers at all of the schools. It speaks to the degradation of America to me, that we've got to have armed guards. But hey, I guess if that's what's happening in our communities and our neighborhoods, we got to expect that to be everywhere else. $750 million in new funding over 5 years to help states implement crisis intervention programs, and I guess mental health, red flags, and all of that other stuff. So there's a lot that's happening. What we don't see taking place in this bill is broader gun control, the bans that we were talking about on certain assault weapons and restrictions for high capacity ammunition magazines. Those things are not going to be in this, but we're going to celebrate those small things. Now, what I do want to know, and I was just waiting because normally the Supreme Court will send out their rulings. They usually wait till about the middle of June to kind of any rulings that are before them. They send them out at that time. We're now at the end of June, and I think the world is waiting to try to figure out what's going to happen with Roe v. Wade. The fact that there is such a stall makes me think either of two things. It makes me think that they're going to say, hey, we're going to make this decision. We're going to run for the hills and do nothing till October. Or it means that there's some tension. And I would imagine that if that's the case, it's probably coming from Chief Justice Roberts, and that there may be something in there that he's trying to present as a compromise instead of doing away completely with Roe v. Wade. Fact of the matter is, I'll tell you, I am a pro-lifer, and that means when I say pro-life, I don't believe in abortion, but I also believe in taking care of lives that are alive. I believe in life all the way across. But I think that people are going to do what they want to do. And to me, it's somewhat it's hard for me to understand how so many people think that people should have the right to do what they want to in so many other sectors, and then they feel differently in the things that they have passionate feelings about. So people are going to do it. I think that we're putting women's lives in jeopardy because there's going to be so many of those illegal abortions taking place. People are going to get done what they want to get done. My thing is, if they're going to do it, and we know that they're going to do it, let's try to make avenues that it's the safest way possible for people to do what they want. At the end of the day, their sin is their sin. They're alive. However you feel about it, if it's not sin, it is what it is. But let people have control over their own lives, as we want them to have control over their own guns, as we want them to have control over their own bodies as it comes to vaccination. My thing is, like, let's just keep it 100 across the board. All right, so we're gonna transition just a little bit, and I want to talk just probably for the last couple of minutes about this January 6th commission. John, have you been watching this at all?
I have not really been following it. I've caught snippets, but I haven't been following it religiously.
You know what's interesting to me is that you can go and you can tell how stations feel about it by what they're covering. I watch CNN, and they're tuned into the January 6th commission and their findings. You go to Headline News and they'll play it. Really, all the media stations. You go to Fox News and they're talking about the guy who created the MyPillow. And it's funny just how we don't tune into that. Then you go to what is it, MSNBC, and of course they are hanging all conservatives at noon on that station. But it's interesting to see how our country is so divided. And the thing that is really most detrimental to me in terms of this conversation is that facts are no longer facts. I think that's the biggest problem that I'm seeing coming out of what we're seeing with this commission, is that we are now making the facts of situations, subjective. And, I was always taught that, the truth is the truth and the facts are the facts. But we're seeing now that there are people that are so engrossed in what we were talking about at the beginning of this. They're so engrossed with party, Republican. I'm a Trumplican. I'm a Democrat. I'm a progressive, that we are so divided and so concerned and holding on to party that we're willing to ignore the facts. And when we live in a country, what I consider one of the greatest countries in the world, facts are important. And when we're working within and desirous to have the greatest democracy in the world, it's important that we understand that facts are very important. And it's important that we realize, for those that are listening, that as we stand upon this great framework called democracy, that we have to have a system where someone has to be able to win and someone has to be able to lose, and that we're able to do so amicably in a way, and that there is a peaceful transfer of power. Yes. And anything less than that is un-American. So regardless of what you think the facts are saying, if we're not seeing a process in which everyone's votes count, all votes are counted, the process is speaking, and then people accept the fallout of those processes, that's not American. So I want you guys to stick to them. We're going to get back to this conversation, talking about how far we come with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Hey, those of you that are out there, listen, let's get into this conversation. We've talked a little bit about what's happening in the world. But I really want to take this and take a look into it and ask ourselves the question, have we really made any trails as it relates to really building an equitable place and space in America as it relates to our corporations, our organizations, our political systems, as well as our justice systems. With Floyd happening, there's a lot that was promised. There's a lot that was hoped for. And so I want us to have a conversation. Have we really had any meaningful successes in that area? So stay with us as we continue this conversation on United Shades of Gray.
You're listening to United Shades of Gray on WSGW.
This is Kareem, and you're tuning in to the second half of United Shades of Gray, conversations of race in America. And we are here. We have gotten to the first portion of our show, and we're going to get kind of focused in on our main topic for today. And that simply is, what strides has this nation made as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, DE and I. They have been all the conversation over these past couple of years. We've heard it talked about in so many different fashions and terms, but now the PC terms are diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I want to start off really with this conversation for those of you listening. And if you're listening here in Saginaw, Michigan on WSGW 790 or 100.5 FM, we thank you and come into the conversation. Or if you're one of our new listeners that are checking in from Joliet, Illinois at WJOL, we want to welcome you as well into this conversation. This is something that impacts all of us, as both of us are near great cities, Chicago and Detroit. The conversations about gun control are very apropos for both areas here.
Oh, yeah.
As I was talking to somebody, and I'm going to get back to our conversation. I was talking to someone about being now in the Chicago market with the show. And they were like, "Oh, you need to talk about gun violence." And I'm like, "Why do you say that?" They were like, "Well, because Juneteenth, we're scared to go to Juneteenth because it might get shot up." And I was just sitting there like going, this is so crazy. This type of nonsensical violence is happening all over our land and our nation. So, Joliet, you are in the same boat as us up here in Michigan. We're just glad that you guys are tuning in, and maybe we can have a conversation together. And we'll have more of you in that market coming in and being a part of this conversation as we continue to build out this relationship. So anyways, so what has been the stride? So when you think of, and John, you're here, our guy Mike, if you guys are looking, Mark is not with us. Mark Bassett, who's normally swinging in as co-host on the show, he's not with us on today because he is traveling. He's got more frequent flyer miles, driver miles than I think Delta and US Air together. But we're glad to be with you guys even in his absence. When you think about the word, how do you describe? And I'm just going to give the three words, DE and I. Let's describe them. I want to know what your thoughts are, John, and just kind of when you think of diversity, what comes to mind?
Diversity. So, okay. What comes to mind, or what do I think it means?
What do you think it means?
Okay.
Well, no. Is there a difference?
There is.
Okay, share.
I think the popular definition of diversity has it as kind of a very superficial thing. Looking at race, gender, you check off these three boxes.
Checking boxes.
All right, we are diverse. Whereas I think diversity means a lot more than that. If you get so you get an inner city white kid and inner city black kid, they're both going to be coming from the same place. You get a country white kid, a country black kid. They're largely going to be coming from the same place ideologically. I think that diversity ought to mean people from a wide variety of backgrounds, people from a wide variety of, if you're trying to put together something that is representative of the population, I think that you should have some representation from, instead of having it be race, gender, box checking, have it be, okay, what are your opinions on this? Because I think that people need to be adults about it too.
Okay.
Because I think that you get a lot of people with differing ideas in the same room, and they're not going to be adults about it, and there's going to be fights, and they're not going to get anything accomplished.
It's interesting that you say that, and I think there's probably a lot of people that feel that way. So your opinion is that if I take an African American female from the country, that if I take a white female from the country, that their experiences should be the same.
I'm not saying that they will be exactly the same. I don't think obviously you talk about different home settings and things. But I think that if they've gone to the same school together, they've had the same teachers, they've talked to the same people, yeah, they're going to have largely the same views on things as each other.
That's interesting. And I'll tell you this. I'll tell you that you're right to a point. If they stay within that system, and they never are exposed to anything outside of that system, I think that you'll be able to see that. And I say that because growing up where I grew up right here in Carlton. The station is technically in Carlton, here in Saginaw, which is a rural area. I grew up, there were dirt roads on the street still where we were going and hanging out. And so there were a lot of opinions that, when I went to school that was predominantly white. Now, I want to say this because I think it's important to understand where I'm coming from. I went to a school that was predominantly white. My family is very black. I mean, when I say black, I mean, we black, okay? And I'm not talking about color, but I'm just talking about our philosophies, our visions, our thought processes, how we operate. But when we were going to school, our white counterparts thought that we were equal, that there were things that were, we were all the same. And for many times, it was easy to get drawn into that we are all the same thought processes. But there were certain things that happened as a young man when I grew up that I experienced, even in that same place, that my white counterparts never had to deal with. My mom is in the stream here today. We went to a basketball game in another rural area, which I would think that if I'm from this rural area, you're from that rural area, we should all be the same. And we were literally, I thought it was a film, a flick out of the 60s, with calling the N-word. And, she and family members were at a gas station, and there was this whole thing, them coming and surrounding the cars and literally coming out of the field. And it was just so different. And I said, these are experiences that my white friends who come from the very same place never experienced. So if we take those thought processes and we say that diversity is based upon locale or experiences that you've had in the regions that you come from, then I think that we really miss a lot about what diversity is. Because I'll tell you what I see oftentimes, and I'm experiencing this in terms of helping some of white America understand. Just because I'm a black man doesn't mean, black people aren't a monolith. And oftentimes white people, in their effort to bring diversity into a space, will bring a black person or an Asian person that makes them feel comfortable with, who they are. So I want a black person, but I want them to have, I don't want them to cause me to be challenged. I don't want them to do things that are going to cause my feathers to be ruffled. I don't want to do anything that's going to cause there to be, opposition or tension in a space.
They just want to check the box.
Absolutely. So it's box checking. So when I think about diversity, and you said this in your answer without saying it, it's not about bringing in different colors, shapes, faces, but it's about really bringing in a more diverse philosophy, understanding the way that we operate.
That's a very good way to put it.
Yeah. So I kind of thought that's where you were going.
Yep.
But I just want us to be careful that just because I'm from the country and you from the country don't mean we go experience the same country.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah. Okay. So when we think about diversity, how would you say? Okay, so diversity would be us bringing in a vast or a varied thought process, experiences, understanding.
I would
Go
use
ahead.
the word culture, but that's a dangerous word to use because people think of it in different ways.
How is culture
Well, a
dangerous?
lot of people equate culture to race.
Well, no, race and culture are two different
I
things.
absolutely agree, but it's not what a lot of people think of.
Well, okay. But this is the thing when we talk about diversity, diversity it should include culture.
Yeah.
Because when a person comes to a space or a place, including like a workplace, they should be able to bring their whole selves. In many ways, it would be as the LGBTQ. I think I got that right.
Yep.
Community having to come to work and act like they were act like they were heterosexual to fit into the workplace. I think that whenever a person comes to work, whenever a person goes to school, wherever they are, they should be able to bring their whole selves. And your culture is a very key piece about who you are. A great example of that is the Crown Law. Have you heard of the Crown Law in California?
I have not.
Okay, so and probably most of our listeners for this conversation haven't either. When we talk about it, what happened in California is that they made it, because certain things were prohibited in terms of how Black folks were able to wear their hair. So Afro, oh, you got your hair, it's unprofessional. Oh, you got braids, it's unprofessional. And it was because the styles and the texture of our hair would not allow us to have the same things unless we went through a chemical process, which was damaging to Black hair. And so in California, they made it a law that you cannot be discriminated because of how you wear your hair. So those styles that are consistent with Black culture, which if you look at the natural curl patterns that Blacks have when they use the right things and on their hair, is beautiful curl patterns. It's not nappy. It is a different curl pattern. And so that was, nappy is a very derogatory word that even in Black communities, we've allowed ourselves to utilize because of the whitewashing of Black culture. And so the Crown Law says that you can wear your dreads, you can wear, and dreads was a good one. You can wear, and I'll tell you this, as a Black man in the Black community who loves Black people, who fights, I had to understand that a lot of my identity and how I identified as a Black man had been whitewashed, because even though, we're being diverse, I wasn't able to bring my whole self into these spaces. And so it was a reprogramming and an understanding, like, look, this is a part of where I come from. This is a part of my DNA. Like, if I'm going to wake up in the morning and be 100% honest and true with who I am, I've got to begin to deal with the pieces of who I am that I've taken on a different system of understanding. And there's a lot of Black folks who don't realize that we have been, whitewashed in terms of what we think is beautiful even. And so when we talk about diversity, we're talking about all of those things, bringing all of yourself to work, bringing all of yourself to a space, your unique ideas, your thoughts. And the thing about it is, I always refer to the diversity as the touchdown. It is the ultimate desire that we want to go, and it's not just bringing in Black and brown faces into workspaces.
Now, if you don't mind me,
Absolutely,
let's pull it back to what stride has the nation made towards making this.
absolutely.
How do you legislate that?
How do you legislate diversity?
Yeah.
And I want to get there, because the way that you begin to legislate is the same way that legislation happened initially. When we look at what happened with Black and brown folks, the government made some things that created these injustices and these inequalities to Black people. And so the same way that they were to legislate to create these inequalities, which were intentional, some of them were intentional, some of them were unintentional, because they were working with a set of information and not really looking at the whole problem, is the same way that you legislated them in, and you've got to legislate them out. And this is the thing where so many people are uncomfortable with the term institutionalized racism. And what we're basically saying is that our institutions, our politics, our governments, our laws, all of these things were utilized to create these separations. And so we've got to begin to address it the same way that we did. So that's how you begin to legislate diversity.
Yeah, I would think that that kind of thing starts much more granularly, much
Mhm.
more with companies, because I think that was something that we were going to talk about as well. Is
What do you mean when you say much more granular?
well, you don't take it to the federal level. You don't look at it top down. You look at it bottom up in terms of, okay, individually,
Okay.
I want to surround myself with a diverse group of people. If assuming that's my belief that things should be more diverse, I want to surround myself with a more diverse group of people. That's going to translate to me hiring a more diverse group of people, or me pushing for a more diverse group, as we have defined it,
Okay.
a more diverse group of people in the workplace. And I think that kind of thing starts from the bottom up. I don't think that that's something that can be enforced. I don't think that you can make a law and say, nope, you need to have, because how do you legislate someone's background and culture as we've stated it?
This is, it sounds crazy, but it's what's happened so many times before.
It's happened negatively in a
Absolutely.
tearing down
Absolutely.
of rights.
And so it has to happen the same way.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the same investment that you make to tear something down is a very similar, if not twice twofold, in terms of rectifying and making that thing correct. Now, you made a distinction between it's something that has to happen at a granular level. I think it has to happen at all the way around. And here's why. When we look at what took place with many of the civil rights, in the civil rights era with Dr. King and Chavez and all of those, Andrew Young, who I've been in trying to get into a conversation with for this particular show that we have here. When we look at that, we have to understand that there were states that's why how many Black folks ended up in the North. When we look at what happened and we just celebrated Juneteenth, it wasn't because the whole of America felt, that this should, but there were states at a state level that were like, y'all can do that, but we're going to do this. And so there was a federal action that took place with the Emancipation Proclamation. And through order number three, when that was read, it basically said that in this cause, we understand that this injustice has been done to these people. And it was something that had to take place at a federal level, because at a state level, we would continually have the Texases, the Alabamas, the Mississippis, the certain areas that were not going to go according to the state. And we still see that same thing today. And so when we look through what took place, even the Civil Rights Act, and I'm forgetting the actual date in the 80s that took place, which completely gutted out, the fact that, if a state is going to make laws that, disenfranchises the people of that state, then it has to go before review before the federal government. And this is why I was saying that there is really a collaborative relationship that should take place. When a state doesn't get it right, they should be able to look to our federal government to say, look, we should have protections as United States citizens that, under certain laws. And so that was removed. And so now we have people wanting to make civil rights and voting rights a state level thing. And it should be. Every American should think that everyone should have the right to vote. And we should remove everything that stops us from being able to vote freely and legally. But that's not the case. And so we have the John Lewis bill, as well as other bills that have been presented for the purpose of creating a space where the federal government can then say, listen, we have to make these protections for all of Americans, because there are certain states that don't want Black folks to vote. Texas don't want Black folks to vote. Okay. And I say that Mississippi is not wanting Black folks to vote. Georgia, it does not want Black people to vote. And I can't say every single Georgian, but as a legislative body, they found that as they allow people of color to begin to vote, and their vote doesn't tend to go in the same direction as theirs, so they're suppressing the vote for the purpose of keeping power. And so I know we were talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and how that comes full circle, but it's important for us to look at this at a federal level as well. So we can't just look at the granular level. It would make it easy for a lot of people, but there's a lot of legislation that needs to come down, and the nation should have a blanket carrier or on certain things. Equity. When we talk about equity, what do you think? Because we've never really defined these. We talked about them as though we.
Yeah. Man,
John,
I don't
John,
even
you're like,
know.
yeah.
I don't even know how to define equity. I know that the technical definition is equality of outcome.
Okay,
Which
that's good. I mean, if I, because most people don't even take it that far, but go ahead.
okay, which that doesn't sound. It's not fair, you know. It doesn't sound fair. If everybody's got equality of outcome, why put in any effort?
Right.
I think that equality of opportunity. I agree with that.
So what does that mean? So what does that mean?
I think that any resource, and I'm going to come out here and say that I don't think the public school system in the U.S. Affords those resources to everyone. I think they do unequally distribute those resources. But I think that everybody should have access to the same resources with which to do something, whatever that something is.
Let's look at that, because
I think I'm a bit more fundamental than I probably should be.
But I think that a lot of white America sees what you're saying and would agree with that framework. Hey, America is a land of opportunity, is a land of freedom. We all have equal access. We are, hey, we've had a black president. I've heard that said like a million times before. So you can do whatever. You have the same opportunities, you have the same access. But the fact of the matter is, if you give me the keys, perfect example. For working with NBA athletes for a period of time, I had a Spider, Lamborghini Spider, parked in my garage, right? And I had the keys. It's in my garage. I had access, and I had even the authority to use it, right? Because the person, hey, if you want to drive it every now and then, okay, great. And I never thought about it, but one day I had access to this vehicle. And I was like, I'm just gonna drive it around the neighborhood. Is this something kind of cool, right?
Yeah, I would.
And I get it, and I got the keys. I have access to this thing, but this is something that I've never driven before. This was something that was so foreign to me that even though I had keys and access to this thing, I could not move this thing out of the garage. I couldn't move it. I had full access, but it was so different than what I had been accustomed to, what I had learned, what I had been exposed to. And if we were able to look at that, we can say that we can give people access. But if they are coming from a place that even the access doesn't make sense because of their experiences, because of their exposure, and one of the biggest gaps that exists in America is an awareness gap. If I don't know anything or anybody who has ever swam before, if you take me to the local pool, I'm more likely to drown than most people. I tell people this all the time. That's why African-American kids are 10 times more likely to drown in a public pool than white kids are, because we don't have swimming pools in our backyard. We're not going up north to the lake. So if you tell me, hey, you got a swimming pool, go out there and swim, I don't know what that means. You can give me access and opportunity, but if it's not taking into account my experiences and my shortcomings, and it's not really bringing those things up to speed, then you can give me all the access in the world and it will never change my position in life.
Okay. Yeah, I see where you're coming. I'm trying to
process it.
Yeah, I'm trying to process it, trying to put it. That I've heard that before. I haven't heard it in that way before, and it makes sense. So you're saying it.
Yeah. So my thing is, when we talk about these things, and that's why I always say that diversity is what you said. It is the best minds, the best ideas, the talents, the experiences, and not only just black and white, but upper echelon, lower echelon. It's economic as well. Bringing all of that into a space and allowing them people, those individuals, to be uniquely who they are, that's the best results.
Yeah.
If you're a company, I want the most diverse group of individuals. One, they're going to come with experiences and ideas and thought processes that are outside the box, outside the think tank that we're normally used to. Number two, they're going to bring a wealth of experience that millions of other Americans have that same experience. So when I begin to look at where we are as a country, I think that we've checked a lot of boxes. When I look at the cries for social justice and reform that has taken place, I think we've checked a lot of boxes. I think that we've had a lot of diversity of colors, but we haven't really had an equitable outcome to what it is that we're trying to do. I want you guys, these conversations go by so fast. An hour is simply not enough time. We're going to have to petition the powers that be for a 2-hour special so that we can really address these issues. John, it has been my pleasure sitting in and just talking with you today about this
great conversation. Yeah.
Great conversation. And we want to thank those of you who are listening at WJOL and WSGW. We want you to continue to come in. This show will air on this coming Sunday at 7 p.m. We hope you enjoyed this conversation and more as we move forward. Those of you who are listening, we thank you for your time and your attention. God bless you all. We pray that you will continually tune in on our new time. We're going to be recording on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. to see how that works. We'll see you next week. God bless you all. Grace and peace. Hey, we want to thank you guys for tuning in today. And yes, as someone said, great conversation, very good discussion. John, thank you, guy, for showing up pretty strong here today.
Well,
yeah. He was concerned. Yeah, I'm talking too much. I am interested in opinions that are different than mine, so that we can have some aha moments. And I think that we even had today where some things to process as we begin to move forward and think and go forward. So thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, tag, and share this conversation. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry, my brown brother out there, Larry Rodarte. Did I get it right, Larry? So we're excited about this show and the other shows that are coming. I heard you did a wonderful job sitting in for art, Larry, and so I hope that I'm able to follow and do a likewise. You guys take it all. Take care. God bless you all. We love you. Grace and peace.